Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Chaz Maley, and I'm here with...
My name is Michael Dreiling.
And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about making lasting changes or changes that last. This is actually the third part in a three-part series. We'll have an opportunity to kind of go over what we discussed in those first two parts, and we hope that the information that we can give you guys today will be helpful for you. I'm a licensed psychologist. I work over in counseling services. I also coordinate the alcohol and other drug education service. So individuals that have maybe struggled with some substance use issues, I will talk to them from time to time.
And I work with Chaz also in some areas of the alcohol and other drug education services, but my primary role is the Project ABC coordinator at counseling services.
Just a little brief overview. At counseling services, students can get individual counseling. They can do group counseling, couples therapy. If you are interested in doing something that's called biofeedback, that's oftentimes used if you experience something like anxiety or test anxiety. We do offer the consultations around alcohol and other drugs. And these services, the first 4 sessions are totally free, so we encourage people to take advantage of them. And then there's a small copay after that. So if you have any other questions at all about individual counseling, things like that, we do offer some free online programs. There's one that's for dealing with stress, another one that deals with academic anxiety, and you're welcome to go to the website to check those things out.
We have some flyers up there too, up front there. And if you didn't sign in, please sign in at the end and I'll remind you again. But we do have some flyers up there that describe everything Chaz just said, plus some more information on the academic anxiety and stress management online programs, which is kind of fitting this time of year, right? A little bit of stress management, finals coming near, maybe getting some papers due, et cetera, et cetera. I'll give you guys a quick, brief overview of session 1. I wish I would have seen you all session 1, but we're really happy you came for session 3. When Chaz and I came up with this program, it was later part of last year. We were starting to think about, the huge popularity of New Year's resolutions people always make. I want to do this, I want to do that. And so that kind of gave us the basis of this to look at what exactly goes into changing some type of behavior. And the way I look at it, especially for college students, for the first time in your life, this might be when you actually have to make some type of change, whether it's, you have to start, studying more. Maybe you need to start, handling your finances a little bit better. But you don't really know how to maybe, in the past you had teachers and parents and coaches. You had a whole support structure there. Now, some of this is kind of on your own. And some of the things and before I go into any further, you got that website right there. You will be able, if you go to that website right there, you'll be able to watch session 1 and session 2. But some of the things we talked about, you guys could all think right now, things you'd like to change, whether it was in January or maybe even now, academics. This is a good time right now to look at it. Possibly, maybe you're struggling a little bit and you realize you could have studied more this semester. Stress, physical health, organization, time management, finances, sleep schedule, those things all sound kind of familiar to types of things you'd like to change or maybe you have in the past. Sound good? We touched on the false hope syndrome, and I'll just go over the false hope syndrome really quick. The false hope syndrome is simple as this. It's time, and I'll give you an example. It's time to make a change. You think, I'd really like to study, I think, an extra 20 hours a week. That would really work out well. I can do this. You get your iPad out and you plan everything out and put it in there. Then you even get an old school planner and you write it all out and you have it all planned out. Everything looks great. Okay, I got this. Between 5 and 9 every night, Monday through Friday, I'm studying, et cetera, et cetera. Sounds good. First week comes and you try it and you're like, all right, that's kind of hard. I don't know if I want to do this every day, but I'll stick with it. Then the second week of classes come, and by Tuesday or Wednesday, you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go 5 to 9 tonight. I'm going to skip tonight. And then you skip the next day. And before you realize it, you just quit. And why do you quit? A couple reasons. But one of the reasons is you just realize that was too hard. There's no way I could really do it. It wasn't realistic. We'll touch on that a little bit. And then you quit. And then it's kind of a cycle. Then maybe a couple months later, a couple weeks later, you decide, hey, I think I'm going to try to do this again. So you get all excited. And that's the first part of the false hope syndrome. There's so much excitement around there. You feel like you can do this. And you go on and through time. And such. And some of the barriers, we talked about barriers, when it comes to studying more or going to the rec more, et cetera, there comes barriers in there and a time. Like the example I was given from going to the library from 5 to 9. I mean, things pop up, right? Social life, work, projects, you name it. So time distraction is a huge barrier, whether that's your roommate, your friends, you name it, your social activities, etc. And then the too much too early, I was kind of explaining that before, unrealistic goals, I explained that too. Fear of trying something new is another barrier. If you have never ever stepped foot in Hale Library, it can be kind of overbearing at times. Like, I don't know if I want to walk in there. Kind of fear of trying something new. And lacking support. We'll talk about that a little bit too. And we touched on the two different types of motivation, looking at intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic being something more that's going to fulfill yourself, and then extrinsic kind of maybe doing something that's motivating from the outside, that's motivating you to do something. And we touched on the stages of change. And remember, you can go back to the website there and see our full presentation on this.
Something that we're actually going to touch on again later on, so we'll just cover it very briefly, and maybe some of you have heard the term SMART goal setting before, and there's different variations of it, but the one that we found to be really effective is, you want your goal to be specific, you want it to be something that you can measure, you want it to be something that's action-oriented or something that you yourself are doing, you want it to be realistic, so we talked before about not setting outlandish goals, and then you want it to be time-based, you want to have a time frame in which that you are wanting to work.
And then, on session 2, we set it up to hopefully you'd come in session 1, we discuss everything, and then kind of work on towards session 2. And one of the areas we thought would be important to look at, 3-4 weeks into the whole behavior change process, is to look at mindsets and how they can, your personal mindset towards that change and overall can influence the whole, process of change. And you guys can see up there what it says about mindsets and how your mindset matters. And if you'll see here, we talked about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And, when it comes to making some type of change, if you realize that you have more of a growth mindset towards that, it does make it easier to make that change. But it doesn't mean you have one or the other. You could have a fixed mindset towards some areas of your life, yet you could have a growth mindset in other areas of your life. For instance, if I thought, okay, I have a growth mindset in the fact that I think I could take multiple classes here on campus, I could learn something new, and I know I can do that. A fixed mindset would be, there's no way I could go to college. I couldn't do that. That's just nothing I could do. That's for smart people. I couldn't do that. You see, that'd be more of a fixed mindset. You could probably think of some instances in your life where you have one or the other. And I kind of explained some of that right there. Those are some good examples of a fixed mindset. You'll see, kind of give up easily, sees effort as fruitless, avoids challenges. I'm stuck with what I'm given. In some areas that might be true in certain aspects of your life, but obviously for a lot, it's not. And then the growth mindset.
So kind of what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of have you assess or reassess the way that you've done things. We're going to revisit the different barriers and kind of have you guys talk either to yourselves or amongst yourselves about different barriers that you've encountered before when trying to make changes. We're also going to look at those factors that help people move towards making effective change. And then we are going to review the goal setting, and you guys are actually going to set some goals here today with us. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at, what are some goals for the next 3 weeks, because finals week's coming up. What are some goals that maybe you have over the next 3 months as the summer arrives? And then what do you see as being some things that you'd like to work on in the next academic year? And so we'll hope that you guys will feel comfortable enough to discuss some of these things with us. So I guess the first question I have, did anyone try and make any changes this year? Did anyone have any New Year's resolutions for themselves? I did. I told myself I was going to make my bed every day, and it's the weirdest thing. But it's interesting how just that simple act kind of makes me feel like I've started the day off right. And so I make my bed, I brush my teeth, and I tie my shoes. It seems all very simplistic, but it's actually was really beneficial. So no one here tried to make any changes this year. No one tried to do anything differently.
Beginning a semester, it didn't even have to be a New Year's resolution. Could have just been, okay, this semester, I am tired of having this GPA. I would like to have this GPA. Or, you know what? I'm broke all the time, Chaz. Why am I always broke? Well, let me make a change. Anything like that? Or, you know, Chaz, I'd like to be a better friend. Do you think I could do that? You know, stuff like that. Any of that cross your mind? Maybe, oh, here's one. Chaz, I'd really like to go to the rec more and get, you know, my rock body on and become like The Rock.
Yeah.
You know, anything like this? Any of this sound familiar, maybe? Wheels turning, possibly. Yeah.
Well, so maybe if you yourselves didn't try and make any changes, what do you think are some things that you've heard of other people that they've tried to change, or things that they wanted to do differently in a semester? More studying? Okay.
Just out of curiosity, freshmen, how many freshmen? Any freshmen? Are you all freshmen? You're all freshmen?
Okay.
Oh, perfect. All right. I mean, this is fitting for everyone, but freshman year is a little bit unique compared, obviously, to the other years. You know, that first semester is a little difficult, right? You know, maybe adjusting. It's not high school anymore. Now you're in the dorms or in your fraternity or wherever you're living. It's a lot different now, correct? Would you agree with that one? North and South? Yeah, okay. And there wasn't anything in January you're like, you know, that first semester was a little rough. What else could I do differently?
And maybe you came in and you hit the ground running and things have just run smoothly the entire time. That is a possibility.
It definitely happens.
But if we're looking at, let's say, the idea that someone wanted to study more, well, what might be some of the challenges that one encounters if that's something that they're trying to change, that they want to study more? Time? Other things that people could run into? Energy? Okay, yeah. And when you talk about energy, like, can you tell me a little bit more about that? So maybe you're investing your energy in some other things that have decreased your ability to effectively study. Other things that can get in the way. Events? Okay. So maybe you're a member of a club or an organization. You've got to be somewhere. Let's say that you have a job. That could be a potential barrier. When you look at, well, has anyone here ever set a goal before? Maybe you didn't do one this semester, but has anyone ever set a goal before? No goals ever? You have? Okay. Sorry. But, you know, when you look at, like, when you're trying to achieve a particular goal, like, what is one's mood like if perhaps they're not reaching that goal? Let's say that they've set something, it's like, okay, I want to, you know, put on, you know, 20 pounds of muscle in 3 weeks. Well, you know, what might be some of the challenges if that goal is not reached? Like, how might that impact someone's mood? Feel down, disappointment, frustration, anger. And, you know, again, that's one of the things when we talk about the false hope syndrome that kind of prevents people from being able to set effective goals. And we'll talk a little bit more about things that you can do to perhaps set goals that are more realistic and then something that is a bit more helpful for you. It's also important to consider, you know, when you're looking at something that you've tried to change and it's not really working out, is it something that you actually wanted to change? Is it something that you actually wanted to do? You know, I had this goal one time that I was going to, like, save up, you know, some money and I was going to, you know, buy myself something nice. It was a computer. But then I would have had to, like, put in a lot more hours at work and it was kind of getting in the way of school and things like that. And I was like, well, I guess I don't really want the laptop that bad. It also wasn't really very realistic given the schedule that I did have with the classes I was taking at the time. And we'll kind of talk about some things that you can do to help overcome some of these challenges. So kind of some of the things that you guys have mentioned already as being barriers to change is like, well, you know, there isn't enough time. You know, I've taken on too much. I don't have the energy for it. Getting distracted, you know, college it's very easy to do that sort of thing. You think, wow, you have all these hours in the day and then it's 10 o'clock. Let's say that studying is your goal. It's 10 o'clock and it's like, okay, I haven't gotten any of my studying done. It's easy to get distracted by friends, by your phone. Netflix is a big one. We talked a little bit before about not having support from others, but actually one of the best ways potentially of reaching a goal is to talk to someone about that thing. Talk to them about what it is that you're trying to change and what it is that you're trying to do differently. And that can be part of that fear of trying something new, because you don't necessarily want someone in on what it is that you want to do differently. However, if you have that person that you can kind of keep yourself accountable to, or that person that will be checking in on you and sort of encouraging you. And you also want to pick someone that's going to motivate you in the way that you feel you're motivated best. If you have that friend that say it's like, okay, I'm trying to eat healthier, and you got a cheeseburger and they slap the cheeseburger out of your hand. It's like, maybe there's a gentler approach, unless it's like, okay, I like being slapped, so do that the next time I have a cheeseburger. One of the biggest barriers that one is going to encounter, just again over time, is maintenance. You might do really well that first week, that first 2 weeks. Getting to week 3 is going to be the real challenge. And this is sort of anecdotally, they say, doing something for 3 weeks and it becomes a bit more of a routine. When I was making my bed, I did it for more than 3 weeks in a row, and now I've been doing it every day since then. Actually, I didn't do it one day, and it was kind of weird. That day, I felt a little bit off the rest of the day. Sometimes there are real or imagined circumstances that get in the way. Sometimes there are real circumstances, like say you're trying to get physical activity and you God forbid, you tear your ACL. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to do what you once did. But then if say you're trying to get physical activity and it's like, oh, I just don't have enough time in the day. And it's like, well, let's look at how you're spending your day. And it's like, well, I'm sleeping in until 10 in the morning or noon. And then I am, I'm going to class, and then I'm going over to the union, and I'm just kind of hanging out for a few hours. And then I go back home and I eat dinner, and then I watch Netflix for a few hours. And then it's like, oh, I'm so tired from such a long day. These are sort of these imagined circumstances. Considering whether or not the thing that you're trying to change is important enough for you to change or not. Again, if you really see no need to actually do anything differently, then it's probably not something that you want to try and do. So these are some of the factors that are going to be really important. And the last slide, it talked about not having the priorities in the appropriate order. It's like, well, make that change your priority. Make it something that you actually want to do. Something that as we're talking about setting realistic goals, something that you feel like you can actually incorporate into your day or your week that is going to be important enough to you. If you want to be a better friend, but you're not really willing to invest the time into improving friendships, maybe that's not really that much of a priority. Positive thinking is going to be really important. Sort of this idea of mindset, believing that you can grow or that you can do things differently. It seems rather simplistic, but I think sometimes as things go along, it's very easy to get discouraged. You want to set daily reminders. You want to put your goals in a place where you are going to see them fairly frequently. If you don't, you maybe won't necessarily remember what it is that you're trying to do, and then there won't be a real drive to do it. I was working with a young man, and he had we created this goal sheet, and he had a very good list of goals, but then he just put it in his backpack, and then he never looked at it again. And then he remembered that we had an appointment coming up, and he's like, oh, I should pull out this goal sheet and take a look at it. So he tried to scramble in the 2 days before we met to meet some of these things. And it's like, okay, well, what's something that's going to be more effective for you? And so he put it on his bedside table. So now when he gets, one of his goals is to wake up at, I think 10 in the morning. Now when he wakes up and his phone goes off, and he's thinking about, okay, I'm just going to hit the snooze button. He's like, well, I see that goal sheet, and I said this is one of the things that I wanted to do. That's going to push him towards it. Be flexible. Again, when we talk about the different circumstances that you might encounter, you want to have that ability to do things differently. Don't allow something that's a little barrier to turn into a big barrier. Again, the person that we talked about with the time, and it's like they were sort of wasting their time throughout the day, and it's like, well, that could be a bigger barrier than it needs to be. If physical activity is your goal, it's set aside this time, from 10 to 11 when you're really not doing much of anything other than playing around with your phone or watching Netflix. Make that the time that you actually go and get physical activity. Again, talking about getting other people involved in what your goals are. And again, talking to people that you trust, people that, again, sort of know the appropriate ways to motivate you. And then if you are starting to get into a rut, if you're feeling like, okay, this isn't having the same kind of impact that it once did, maybe change it up. Let's say, for example, a person has decided that they're going to go over to Hale Library and they're going to start studying for 2 hours a day. And they do a really good job. But then it's kind of like, after a couple of months, sitting the same like bookshelf, sitting in the same place, it's kind of like, okay, this doesn't really have the excitement or the allure. It's like, yeah, I'm doing really well, but it's getting kind of stagnant. It's like, well, maybe now I go and sit in a coffee shop, or I knew a person that would study in McDonald's for whatever reason. They were able to get a lot of work done. You have a fries or shake. And,
yeah, and that just made me think of something. That's the trying something new.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, I'm a freshman. I've only studied at Hale. You're telling me I should go to a coffee shop or something? I'm not doing that. That's something new. That's a barrier to get across. There are more places in the world to study than just Hale. But, sometimes we get those blinders on. And we don't think about the other ones. We're afraid to try something new. I just want to touch on one thing really quick, too, with the setting daily reminders and putting your goals in a place. Hey, utilize technology. Set a reminder on your phone or your tablet every morning at 9 a.m. or whatever it is that says this. I want to study more. I want to do this. It gets annoying after a few months, but I have reminders like that every day that pop up. And now it's habit. I'm doing what my phone told me, but it's still a nice reminder. And the same with getting others involved and make them aware of the changes you want to make. Utilize social media. You guys are using it all the time, correct? You're tweeting your little hearts out. Use that. Use that. Yes.
So again, you saw like what the SMART goal setting meant, and we'll go to the next one real quick. But something to consider when you are setting goals is to think about process versus outcome. Has anyone heard that term before, process versus outcome goals? Okay, and what was your understanding of it? Okay, and so when you're setting goals and you're looking at the process, as you see here, it's the actual act of doing versus an outcome goal is there's sort of this desired outcome, and it's not saying that an outcome goal is bad. However, you're more likely to have lasting changes if you set more process goals. So let's say, for example, a person has decided that they want to get a 3.8 at the end of a semester. Well, that's an outcome goal, and I don't think that's a bad goal to have. But something that could be that's problematic about that is that with these outcome goals, we can't always necessarily control what that outcome is going to be. And so let's say that person ends up getting a 3.5. It's like, well, 3.5 is a very good GPA to have, but it's kind of like, well, I didn't get that 3.8, and so they might experience some disappointment. Maybe the idea then is to set more of a process goal. And a process goal would be, okay, I'm going to spend an hour and a half each day studying, an hour and a half in addition to what I've been doing before. Or if an hour and a half isn't realistic because you've never been able to sit down longer than 30 minutes to study in your life at one point in time, maybe you set the goal for 45 minutes to an hour. And so you're just kind of focusing on, okay, what's the actual process? What's going to get me there? Thinking about short-term and long-term goals. Short-term goals are those things where you're kind of thinking like a couple of weeks out. And I think that those are great goals, and perhaps these short-term goals will lead to longer-term changes. And then don't be afraid to revisit and modify things. If you've been doing something for about 3 weeks and it's really not working out, it's like, say you have a benchmark, you're not reaching that benchmark, change it up, do something different. So,
yeah, let's add on that real quick. That's a great point. For instance, the example Chaz was given before, 2 weeks into it, the 20 extra hours a week, whatever you want to study, that's not working. Instead of just quitting it completely, reassess, saying, you know what, let me try 10 minutes this week, or 10 minutes. Yeah. I hope you could do 10 minutes. Let's do 10 hours and such.
So what we want you guys to do right now is we want you to take a few minutes, just kind of where you are. Does everyone have like a piece of paper or something to write on or write with? Yeah, no. And we've also got some of these making lasting changes sort of manuals. If you wanted to take a look at these later, we can hand those out. They're actually really, really nice. We kind of designed them ourselves, so we're real proud of them. But anyways, with the semester coming to an end, let's say, what are some of the things that you'd like to work on, before finals week approaches, and try and use, if you can, sort of like the SMART goal setting approach. So you want it to be something that's specific, you want it to be something that you can measure, you want it to be something that's action oriented, something that you are actually doing, something that is realistic, and then something that is time based. And we've kind of given you that time already because we said you've got 3 weeks. We'll give you guys a few minutes to do that, and then we'll come around and we'll ask everyone to share. Or if you don't have a writing implement, you can mentally create a goal. All right, is there anyone that would like to share what their goal is in the next 3 weeks? I'm sorry, what now? Catch up on notes and classes. Okay, so how do you get to that goal? What is it, the behavior that you need to do in order to make that a reality? Okay, so going to class, and so maybe you set a goal that you'll go to 90% of your classes in a given week. You'll have, I'll take 3 pages of notes, each time. What are some things that could potentially get in the way of you getting caught up on those notes? Okay, so given the barriers that you've listed, what do you think would be some effective ways of dealing with those things? It's hard not to binge watch things, especially
really
stuff that's really, really interesting or anything. Any other goals that folks have created for themselves for the next 3 weeks?
Finish strong.
Okay, finish strong. Okay, so what does that mean to finish strong?
Just like make sure to go out of my class, make sure I go finish everything, make sure just everything's in place, not fall behind these last week. Oh, I got the week. I'll skip this day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll skip that day. Oh, I have a 90. I won't do that time. Stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah. So what is it that could be a potential barrier to staying focused or getting things done in the last 3 weeks?
I think it should be like laziness. Like, I'll cover later, or putting it off, and the deadline comes up. You're rushing it, and it doesn't come out as good quality.
And what do you see as being some things that can help you overcome that potential barrier of laziness?
Just time manage, and just make sure I'm on top of stuff.
Okay. Any other goals that folks want to share? Time management? Okay. And time management, it sounds like a popular one, in this 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I think that, he's kind of considering how things are. So what is it that you would actually like to do with regards to time management?
I just spread myself
Okay.
so I just need to work on
So when you say that you spread yourself too thin, are there things that could kind of be put off or perhaps eliminated from your weekly or daily routine that aren't necessarily helpful for the whole idea of time management? Okay. And I think that's something to consider. It's kind of like you prioritize, right? And you look at it's like, okay, while this would be like a really nice thing to be a part of and participate in, it's like, I've got this other thing that's going to have more of a longer lasting impact on my grades. It's like, I could go to this, event and it would be a lot of fun, but then I have this 20-page paper that's due like in a couple of days. So I should probably make that a bit more of a priority first. Any other people here that tend to spread themselves too thin with things? Other people that are pretty good about keeping things contained? No? All right. Any other people that have goals for the next 3 weeks?
I want to survive through the rest of the 20 minutes of this presentation.
Yeah, right. Just get through.
Hey, it's all cool.
Anyone else and thank you guys so much for
Yeah.
sharing. Anyone else that's willing to
Awesome.
share their goals for the next 3 weeks?
Do not procrastinate, and then so my process for doing that is last for homework one night before
Okay.
I get it done. So I put 2 days before, maybe, in the morning or whatever.
Okay. Anything that could potentially get in the way of achieving that particular goal?
Friends.
Okay. Okay. And how do you manage, if that's a potential barrier, how do you manage that, if friends are going to potentially get in the way?
Just walk a little bit if you guys.
So it's kind of like, again, prioritizing and saying that, it's not saying that your friends aren't important to you, but it's like at this particular point in time with the 3 weeks remaining, it's like, okay, this is what I'm wanting to do. And it's like, if you're able to get this work done ahead of time, then you can like spend time with your friends and not have something looming over your head that you need to do. So the next goal that I want you all to think about is, what is it that you'd like to do over the next 3 months, with the summer coming up? Like, do you have any goals for the summer? And we'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think about that, unless you've already done it. Maybe you've already worked ahead, which, kudos.
First summer after your freshman year. It's a big summer. I remember that vividly. I had lots of goals. I don't know if I accomplished any of them. It's a lot of free time. Some of you might work. Some of you might take summer classes. Some of you might chill at the pool the whole summer, which sounds nice.
I was working at Chi-Chi's when it was still a restaurant.
It's not a restaurant anymore?
No.
No, that's too bad. Where have I been?
Something about like rat tails and
Well, what's wrong with that?
rat body press and,
Hey,
and the food.
who doesn't like a little burrito with a wrap part in it?
So someone that maybe we haven't heard from.
I haven't heard of any of these
Haven't heard.
people.
Anyone that has any goals for themselves for the summer? So in the next 3 months.
Oh, so you're taking summer classes.
Okay.
That's good. Especially, you said don't procrastinate for your summer classes.
Okay. And what are
That's
again,
great.
kind of thinking about what are some potential barriers to getting work done for summer classes? The summer is a very big distraction, and
Sure.
psychologically, it's kind of hard to remain in this mode that you're still a student, because it's kind of like, well, summer's the time that you start working 40 hours a week that you're supposed to be relaxing and enjoying yourself. So that's going to be a really big barrier to overcome. What do you think helps you do that? Okay, so having a very specific thing, it's like you have a to-do list or a task list that you have for the day. Very good. Any other goals that folks have for the summer? You here in the purple? Okay. And with any particular goal in mind for that money? So just kind of having like extra spending cash, like when classes start again. Okay. And what helps you get to that goal of saving up as much money as you can? And will you be working this summer? Oh, okay. So you've already got a job lined up, so you don't need to. Okay. So that's good. And so you said one of the barriers is that sometimes it's like really fun to like buy a bunch of stuff because it looks cool or it tastes good. And so sort of overcoming that. Is there anything that might help you with avoiding like the online shopping? If that's been a barrier in the past to saving money.
Well, a lot of times, like, I'll be scrolling
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's really tough if your natural inclination is to see what's on sale. It's like, oh, they've got a great deal on this.
Yeah, and Facebook knows you very well. You know?
All those analytics they do.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you here? Any summer goals? Okay.
last year, I took a long time off for my job.
So do you see any potential barriers of having that balance, like things that could get in the way?
Just getting here when I go to the
And so how do you help yourself overcome that particular barrier? Yeah, it's kind of remind yourself, when the classes start again, it's like I had no money, and I don't want that to happen again. And then finally, just kind of thinking about, what would be your goals for the next academic year? So it's kind of like, what is that, 2015, 2016?
2016, yeah.
And has anyone sort of identified any goals that they have for themselves for next year? You in the back there up top? Declare a major? Okay. Yeah, that's a really big one. Any potential barriers to declaring a major? Feeling like there's lots of options for things, and there are lots of options. What are some potential ways of overcoming that barrier? Doing research, perhaps creating a pros and cons list, if you have the time to invest in that. What about you here in the sunglasses? Any goals for next year?
Probably just to start, like, working back from the grade, and not just, like, vague ways to try to really start being serious.
So establishing good habits earlier on in the semester, so you're not necessarily feeling like you're playing catch up as time goes along.
It's very easy to do, especially the first week with the syllabus, and then you don't really have any tests or papers due for a couple weeks or so, and then all of a sudden it's October 1st, and everything kind of crashes in. Yeah, this is a good time to think about it right now.
And yeah, like as you think about the goals that you guys have set, and I think the goals that you all have set are great. But even think about like breaking them down into, sort of that SMART goal setting category. So like if we're taking the example of like starting the semester off right, it's like, well, maybe, okay, I'm going to spend 12 hours a week is how much time that I'm going to invest in studying per week. And so if you're able to like get that 12 hours done, by Wednesday, and there aren't necessarily things that are due, it's kind of like now you have Thursday and Friday to be able to sort of enjoy yourself and spend time with people. If the goal is to have a major declared, it's kind of like, okay, I want to make my decision by the third month in classes. I don't know when you're supposed to have that declared or not, if that's before the second semester, or is it just in that?
I think it's by the end of your sophomore year. Is that right?
Yeah. All right. Excellent. So did you guys have any questions or concerns, thoughts? No questions? And you guys can feel free at the very end if you want to come up and ask us some questions. Again, we have this handy Making Lasting Changes workbook that kind of talks about a lot of the things that we've gone through. This could sort of be the item that you use to help get yourself on track for next semester.
It's free too.
It is free.
That's amazing.
So thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming and participating. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Again, we've got some stuff here about counseling services if you want it. We've got some stuff about stress management. We do have another cat chat that's coming up next week that talks about surviving finals. So like different habits that you can get into to perhaps be more effective when that time comes.
And if you didn't sign in, please sign in up there or there. And we wish you, all the luck in the world for the rest of the semester. Good luck on finals, and go Cats.
Take care, guys.
You know.